Let's see. Right. I always have trouble trying to explain things sometimes. I mean, I used to be good at explaining things, but one of the first things about explaining something is having it a clear understanding of it in your own mind, because before you can really explain something, the first thing you have to do is get it all into context in your own head. Well, I've done a few videos lately trying to explain this coil system, and I think I failed to basically get it across really. And I think what I need to do is explain it in a different way. Right, I'm talking about the six or seven coil rolling flux system that I'm designing right now for a motor a generator to produce energy. And one of the problems about trying to explain something is often the most important key element of the whole thing is missed out or not explained. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain it in reverse, because then you'll see what I'm talking about. Right, so I realised I was thinking about last night, sometimes when you reverse something, when you turn something and reverse it, you get the idea. You'll think, oh my god, I never realised that. Right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about these six or seven coils, right? So I'm just going to draw. This pen's not very good actually. Let me get a better pen. It's not very bright. Right. Let's draw 6 or 7 coils. I'm just going to do a box for the coil, right? So 3, 4, 5, 6. I hate doing stuff on the computer because it's hard for me to draw stuff with a mouse. Now, now the next phase is the actual rotors. So we've got our rotor, right, which is big. It's a big drum, right? And this quadrant, I'm just going to separate this. This quadrant is all south field. This quadrant is all north. And this other quadrant on the opposite side is all south, and this one over here is also north. Right, let me just stop wobbling my flipping hand. It's because I'm trying to hold the phone without pressing on the without touching anything. So basically these coils are saturated right now with a south field coming out. The south field from this magnet array is basically all around here, right? Always, and there's some of the coils are sticking out the end and quite saturated, but that's okay because I'll explain that in a minute. Right, now in this situation, and these coils are all wired in series. Now even people get confused about what series and parallel means. Well, when you connect something in series, that's like having a whole bunch of batteries like you put in your calculator in a long chain. They're all in series. Series means 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 along, whereas parallel is when everything is connected in the same. So let's just go over some basics. Parallel is when we say we've got 2 batteries, right, and both batteries, the plus is connected together and the minus is connected together. So that's parallel, right? That's not series. Series is when you have your batteries connected like this, So basically what happens if this battery, what am I doing? If this battery is 1 volt and this battery is 1 volt, and series you get 2 volts out, whereas in parallel you would double the current, right? But you wouldn't double the voltage, right? Now I've cleared that up, and I must remember to move my camera when I'm doing this because I forget sometimes. So in series, all of these coils are connected so that the flux that is interacting with all these coils is generating a voltage on each coil. So this coil voltage is added to this coil voltage, this coil voltage is, so what we have basically is plus. So we have plus, 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 plus. So if all of these coils, each coil is generating 7 or 8 volts, you can add all that up, you'd get the voltage that's coming out. That's when the south field is directly over all of the coils. Now what happens when this magnet, this rotary magnet system, and the south field is starting to exit the coil assembly? Oh, this looks like I've got to draw this all over again, which is why I folded the paper. Now, so we have, I'm going to have to draw this all again. So I want to keep it clear and concise so you can see what I'm doing, so you understand. Right, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What I'll do is I'll draw this with a rotor in between so you can see what I mean. It's a lot easier. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they're in series, so that's plus, plus, plus. Now I'm not going to draw the rest yet because I'll show you why. Right, so we have our rotor. Oh shit, my pen slipped. I can't draw a circle, the paper slipping around. So now what we have is our separator is in the middle. So the separators are here. That's between the poles. So now we have south over here, we have north over here, we have north up there, we have south over there. Right? Sorry about the squiggly lines. Now what happens now is that this side of these coils is energized with the positives from the south field, so we have plus, so this is generating plus. The north field is entering on this side of the coils, so what have we got here? We have minus because it's subtracting the voltage away because it's the other pole. Now it's only minus as long as this section is exposed to the south field. But once the south field is completely exited, this coil will be inducing a voltage which is the other polarization, the other polarity, and it will all become plus again when the north field is entering all of the coils. Another thing, normally when a magnetic flux from a rotor, when a flux is exiting a coil, you have drag, right? It induces reluctance to leave the coil assembly, so you have drag. Now, but with this system, with a series of coils, we don't have the drag. We can't have the drag because any induced drag that you would see in series will be passed along the coil series array to induce attraction on the other side. So what we would get is an offset of the drag. Instead of a full amount of drag that we would see, we'll get an offset, so that we'll have a certain amount of attraction on the other side, so it will actually be attracting on the north. So what's going to happen is we're going to get some forces pulling on the north field on this side as the south field is exiting. So what does that mean? That mean, well, now let's think about it in a completely different way so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to reverse it now. So what I'm going to do now is we're just going to imagine that the rotor is not a moving object. We've got south on this side, we've got north on this side. So what we're going to do is we're going to energize these 3 coils with a positive field, a positive voltage, And on this side, we're going to induce these 3 coils with a negative voltage. What's going to happen? Is the rotor going to move? No, it's not going to move. It's not going to turn, because we have a balanced situation, whereas these 3 coils on the north side are receiving the negative voltage, and these 3 coils on this side of the south field are receiving a positive voltage. So the rotor won't move, it will stay stationary. It will actually sit in the middle. That means we've got no propulsion, have we? We have no propulsion. Now, if we have no propulsion, then why the heck should we have drag when this rotor is in the correct way round, is spinning through these coils? Well, we won't have drag, because any inducement of a voltage on these 3 coils will also be passing through the other 3 coils, 3 or 4 coils on the other side, and it will induce an opposite reaction to the rotor on the other polarization, which will cancel out the drag. So basically, whatever drag we have on this side will be transferred as attraction on this side, so it will continue to spin. I think I explained that better than before, but that's the theory, that's what I'm building, and that's what I'm hoping is going to work. But there's going to be losses. Yes, I didn't cover the losses, did I? But there will always be losses. There will be a certain amount of drag on the ferrites or the core materials. So if we've got core materials running through these coils, those are going to induce drag. So we're going to have losses, but the question is, how much loss are we going to see? Are we going to see a lot of loss, or just a small amount of loss? Because the induced flux on a ferrite or steel or iron based core will always create a certain amount of reluctance, so you will always have a certain amount of drag. So in an ideal situation, we would hope that we would have no drag, but we will have some drag. Maybe just less, because there's another factor involved in this as well, because the coils are they're situated quite close to each other, and you've got what you call mirroring or echoing of the cores. That is, when you have some parallel bars close to each other, and you magnetize one of the bars. If one of these bars has a south field on it, and you just stick the magnet directly onto that bar, then all of the other bars are going to be in symbiotic relationship to that piece of steel. They're all, just like an antenna array receives radio signals, it will also conduct a certain amount of that flux. So you'll have a mirroring of that flux. It will weaken as it goes along. So the further that goes along, the weaker it will get. Now, having this assembly like this with all these coils set so that this side is basically biased with the south field, this side is basically being biased with the north field, there's going to be bleed through of the flux. So we're going to see drag there as well, because it's difficult to isolate something in a small space. It's very difficult. So the field, even if this field is south down here, some of that's going to bleed through and short out with the north field over here. So we're going to see a little bit of, yeah, it's not going to be ideal. So anyway, that is what I'm testing out. That's what I'm hoping it's going to work. And yeah, so anyway, the only way to find out is experiment and test it and see if it actually does what you hope it will do. Yeah, so I hope that explains it. I think I've done the best I can with that. But you see, obviously, when this is running and this rotor's spinning, when it's at top dead center, when all of these coils are subjected to one field, they are going to produce energy. They just won't produce energy when the south and the north fields are equal on both sides, because it will cancel each other out, and that's the cutoff. The opposite pole, the opposite flux pole, is doing the cutting off instead of the actual exiting of a coil, a single coil, for a flux field, which would induce a drag situation. we have a rolling effect. There's something else I wanted to draw really. So we've got our six or seven coils. Let me just draw some dots. That's the coils because it's quicker. So what we would have is the south field is entering this coil over here. We would basically have a big peak. And if the flux was over here, then we would have a smaller peak there, and the other pole would be over here. So we'd start to see negative peaks on the other side. So we would have negative peaks on these coils, positive peaks on this side. But as the top dead center of the flux came into full view of the coils, we would hope to see something like that with the middle there. And like that, so we would see much bigger waveforms. We have a much bigger peak right in the center, but because they're in series, all of that would be equalized, so that the voltage overall in the series of coils through the whole system would basically be the sum total of all of the coils minus the resistance of the coils themselves. Right. Anyway, that's it.